All right, guys, Luke McFadden on the podcast today. Really interesting guy, well known for his YouTube channel that follows along his journey in the crabbing industry, of all things. We talk about that. We talk about the challenges of getting into that industry as a guy who's not from a commercial fishing family, not from a crabbing family. That's hard to do. So we talk a lot about that. We talk about his endeavors in the hunting world too, hunting Sika deer out in Maryland. We talk about the food system a ton. As a seafood guy, he knows a lot that I had no idea about. So super interesting stuff. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. Luke, thanks for coming on, man. I've actually had a bunch of people mention you to me, including Dave Hansen, and he's a character, man. He's like, you gotta get Luke on. I think you'd enjoy talking to him. And it sounds like you were just down there fishing with him, huh?
Yeah, we were just down in Cabo for a few days on vacation, and yeah, I got to go hang out with Dave. He's an interesting guy, man. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, yeah.
He's a funny
We're
dude.
talking, yeah, we're talking about Dave from what is it? Your
You're a
saltwater fishing
saltwater
guide.
guide, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some variation of that, but I mean, if
Uh-huh.
people Google him, they'll find it. But no, he's a good dude, and I mean, his energy level, man, is pretty wild, and particularly around this
Yeah.
whole social media
Oh
thing,
yeah.
because he's like, we were just having a little technical difficulties before we were recording, and I was giving Luke a little bit of a hassle because I'm like, dude, you're a YouTuber plus you're an Asian and you can't figure this out.
I
And
know. I'm like
and
terrible with it.
yeah, it's funny because Dave's like the epitome of that, dude. Like doing all the social media stuff, that's his primary business. And he's like, I mean, that guy can't even open his email, you know. So it's kind of classic.
Yeah, they call him
But yeah,
the loco gringo down there on the
yeah,
rocks.
yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But is that your first time? Was that your first time down in Cabo?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was
Yeah.
nice. It's warm. It was a lot warmer. I picked a good week. It was like 10 degrees here in Maryland when I left. It was
Yeah.
at least like 70 down there. It was a lot warmer.
Yeah, yeah. No, did you what kind of fishing did you do? Did you go bill fishing any days or was it smaller boat stuff? Like what were you doing?
Yeah, we did everything. I actually was filming a video while I was down there, which was
Oh,
kind of
okay.
like all the different levels of fishing, like from like a dollar, what it would cost
Oh,
you to fish with
sweet.
a dollar up to like 3,000 bucks on a charter boat. So like I went fishing with like fishing string around a Pedialyte bottle with, off the rocks, like with garbage basically.
Yeah, yeah.
Did that, and then I had like a collapsible fishing rod, fished with that off the beach, and then went on a ponga that was a few $100, and caught some yellowtails and some mackerel, and then went on the big charter fishing boat. And my wife actually caught like a 170-pound striped marlin, which was pretty
Oh,
cool.
okay.
Yeah, we
Sure.
caught some yellowfin tuna as well, so it was cool.
Yeah.
It was neat, cool
Dude,
experience.
did you catch any fish with the bottle? Oh,
I
I
did. I
actually
caught a puffer
okay.
fish.
Oh, you did?
I,
Okay, you caught
yeah, yeah,
something?
yeah. It
Yeah.
was something. I was happy to catch something.
Dude, I like that concept, man. I look forward to seeing the video, Luke, because I actually filmed one. I've never edited it. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say, but like this concept you're talking about will hit huge with your crowd. But I filmed one that was like vacation fishing with your kids, dude. I think it's like a lost opportunity, man. Because most places you can go to Walmart and buy stuff to go fishing. Like if in
Hmm.
your Hawaii or if in the Caribbean, and you can go fish off the rocks and you can catch
Oh
stuff,
yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
I got a whole host of those like telescoping fishing rods and stuff that
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
taken everywhere. Where they've been everywhere I've been. I always got one in the truck. I'm always packing one with me anywhere I go. For the
Yeah,
most
yeah,
part.
no, for sure. What I have to ask, dude, because we used to always use the little mini spins, like the Daiwa mini spins, when I was a kid, and we'd always have those. Like we'd pack one when we would trout fish with them, whatever. But I don't know what happened, man. Like I don't know if their manufacturing process changed or something, but now they're not near as good as they used to be. You did what do you use like when you're traveling?
I use like, man, the one I had that I took everywhere with me for years and years was like, I think it was made by Shakespeare, but it was a piece of junk. It was like,
Yeah, yeah,
the
sure.
all it's just got like the little chrome metal eyes that, that I was constantly super gluing back on. Like, I mean, my theory was always like something's better than nothing. I used to just carry like a wad of fishing line and some split shot and hooks, in a sandwich bag or something with me when I would travel, and I would just hand line use that. But then I got a hold of that fishing rod, and I would just take that around. And then I went to like El Salvador one time, and I met this guy, and they had he took me fishing. They literally had never like seen a fishing rod before or anything like that. So I let him keep it. He
Yeah.
hopefully he's still using it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've had a series. I don't know. I have like a little eagle claw one. I have I don't know. They're kind of
Yeah. It's
all. I've
whatever.
not
Yeah.
found
Yeah.
a good quality one. They're just kind of all like my theory. Like I said, something's better than nothing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of what you're going for on that. I totally get it. It's funny, man. Here in the Caribbean, almost all the locals just hand line, like they hand line with a little, the little plastic loop.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly have never tried it. I never. I mean, they're all like subsistence fishing, so
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense. But it's kind of interesting to watch. I dive a lot off these reefs and stuff here, and it's really interesting to watch like the local guys that fish off the shore, Luke, because a lot of them I don't even know that they know how to swim, to be honest. Like when I come out of the water, they're always like, "What the hell are you doing?" I lobster dive with one of my daughters quite a bit, but those guys, man, like they know exactly where the fish are because I'm underwater. Like I can see
Mm-hmm.
those reef fish and like right where those guys stand. Like, they have the spots like nailed. It's
Yeah,
kind
man.
of cool to see that they got it
It's
figured out
not
for
always
themselves.
all about all the equipment. They're making it
No,
happen with. I think those guys are like a perfect example of like it doesn't matter how expensive the fishing rod was or whatever. Like these guys are out there making it happen with
yeah,
whatever
sure.
they got. Sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, dude. And I don't know. Well, I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear like your whole El Salvador story, traveling down there or whatever. But you ever notice how happy those guys are?
Dude, seriously, man, it was like that was the first time I'd ever like really been out of the country, especially anywhere that was like in extreme poverty.
Sure.
And man, like it was amazing. Like they have nothing. And they were like so happy. They were genuinely they just had this kind of like peace about them that they weren't worried about stuff, and like you had to be careful because like if you said, oh yeah, I like this coffee cup or whatever, they would send it home with you. They'd be like, take it, they'd be like, they'd make you take it, but they have material possessions have next to no value to them unless it's a necessity for whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Because I don't know, there's just not they don't have, it's just very different,
Yeah, it's a
I
totally
thought it was
different.
cool, it was neat.
Yeah. What were you down there for, Luke?
My buddy goes down there a lot.
Oh, okay.
His niece or something is like I think she's like a missionary down there. She
Okay.
lives in some like village in the middle of the jungle. And he one time had an extra ticket. Somebody had bailed on him, and he was like, "Yeah, it's just me going down. Like, if you want to go." I was like, "All right, cool." Like, I've never been anywhere.
Sure.
I've like never been anywhere like that ever. And so I just went with him and just wandered around the jungle for like 8 days. It was cool. It was awesome. Just
Yeah,
like
yeah. It
just kind of like let the adventure happen.
sure. I have to ask, man, was that pre-YouTube or is there a
Oh,
video
that
on
was
it?
a long time
Pre
ago.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
there's
right,
like
all right.
pictures on Facebook of it, I think, but that was years before I did
Sure.
YouTube. It's kind of
Yeah,
funny because like all the stuff I do on YouTube is like I'm like, dude, if I'd started YouTube 10 years ago, that's my only regret. It's not starting 10 years ago because like all the stuff I do now that people are like, oh, he's crazy. Why is he buying this old piece of junk or they're building this thing? I'm like, dude, I've been doing that my entire life. Like, it's
yeah,
just recently I started turning on the camera and editing
yeah.
it. Like,
Dude, it's funny you say that, Luke, because I feel that identical way, man. Like, because all my years of outfitting in the mountains, I didn't video any of it.
mhm.
And like now I'll tell some random story or something on some video I'm doing, and people will pick up on it, and I'm like, oh, dude, I have like I could have had thousands of hours
I
of
know.
footage. You know what I mean?
I
Um,
know.
but I guess that's a deeper question to ask you, the guy that's like, you do, just so the audience knows if they're not familiar with your channel, you do a lot, like what would you call the genre of YouTube? Is it like vlogging or what would you call it?
Dude, I don't even know. Like I've
Yeah.
I've talked about that like with my buddies and stuff before. Like I don't even know what I do. It's like I have no idea. It's just kind of like half of it's just like kind of my life, crabbing and my business. I'm just kind of recording it. The other half is kind of like just all the stuff I was doing before. So we got videos kind of like everywhere from, straight crabbing and how to build a crab pot to like, a day in the life to building some crazy contraption or buying some junk boat and getting it running and, taking it somewhere to, going hunting, and
Sure.
camping in the when it's 10 degrees outside. Like, I don't know. I don't even know I don't even know what box it's in,
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah,
man.
I don't know either. I
It's
mean,
all over.
I mean, I love watching it, Luke, and I'm not, I've never gone crabbing, and a lot of the geography and the location of where you're at. It's a bunch of stuff that I'm not that I've never done, and I don't know that I ever will get exposed to it, but it's still cool to watch. You know what I mean? I think that's I always wonder, man, if that's like if it's because I'm just into the outdoors, hunting, fishing, that sort of thing, or if it's just intriguing to watch somebody doing something that they're good at. I don't know. Guys, biltong, okay? I have been obsessed with this stuff for 3 or 4 years. Ever since I got on a keto, carnivore, paleo-esque type of diet, I've had a hard time finding healthy snacks. Biltong is a great option, particularly the slabs that have this fat on the side. That's where your energy is if you're a fat burner like me. Super simple ingredients in this, guys. Literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ingredients. Compare that to your gas station jerky. A great snack in the backcountry or just day to day. Biltong Depot is a huge supporter of my content. Go to their website, biltongdepot.com. Use my discount code CLIFFG, CLIFFG for 15% off at checkout and to support this content. Thanks, guys. Do you have any idea? I actually asked Deer Meat for Dinner years ago when I interviewed him, Robert Arrington. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him or not, but I asked him this question. I'm curious what your answer is. Do you have a feel for your audience, Luke? Are they folks that are the majority of them folks that are like outdoors people, like they're into hunting and fishing, or do you feel like they're a mix of like everybody, including people that are not really into outdoor stuff?
I think that it's a mix of everybody. I mean, I have a pretty good feel for my audience. One of the reasons I say that is because, I have the crab stand where I sell all my crabs directly to
Mhm.
the customer. I'm there every weekend, for the most part. But I get to directly interact with
Sure.
all the different kinds of people that watch my videos in real life. So I pay attention to that a lot. Like, who they are and whatever. And honestly, it's such a broad spectrum. But I would say, like, kind of to sum it up, like a lot of my audiences, they're working class people, like they're small business owners, they're blue collar guys, they're, maybe they're even like white collar guys, probably not like a ton of finance pros watching me, but, like, you know, regular, a lot of
Sure.
just kind of, I don't know, like, I don't want to say regular people, but kind of like regular people. I mean,
Yeah.
which
Uh,
I think is fine. A lot of people, just talking to them and everything. I know a lot of people like I guess, kind of the, how to even say it, but like the almost the hard headedness of what I do. Like they like watching. I have a goal and I'm kind of building towards that,
sure.
and they get to watch the story unfold in real life. I mean, literally, probably only a week after I've watched it unfold. So,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
No,
they never know what's
absolutely,
coming
dude.
next, and I don't either for the most part.
Yeah, yeah. No, for sure, dude. I think some ways and people probably you get people that are basically like rooting for you, man. You know what I mean? Like they're watching your stuff. They want you to succeed, so they're watching it. They want to keep track of it over time. I think it's interesting because I think there's people reflecting on the conversation that stimulated that question when I was talking to Robert about it. He said he's like, I think a big portion of my audience they'll never they probably really don't ever see themselves going fishing or whatever, but they want to watch me go fishing, or they want me watch me go diving. They want to watch Luke go crabbing just because it's almost like an escape from whatever, the whatever monotony they might have in their life. You know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of people like that too, which is pretty cool. I would say that that's how I watch your stuff, right? It's so much different than my life. It's cool to watch your stuff, and it's like a totally different outdoor activity that I've never been exposed to. So it's just cool to watch.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. No, for sure. I gotta ask, man. I watched your interview with Dave, and I don't think you guys got into it on that, but how'd you get into it, dude? Like I guess just the outdoors in general, but then crabbing.
I mean, so my dad, he was big outdoorsman, hunter, fisher, always had boats, stuff like that. He always lived up in Northwest Pennsylvania. I grew up here in Maryland with my mom, and so I would go spend summers with him, and we go fishing, and then I'd go up there during hunting season and everything. We go deer hunting or whatever, primarily deer hunting. And I don't know. I think I just got the bug. I just like being outside. I like kind of the freedom of it. Just kind of, it's freeing being out there, just kind of up to your own whatever. And yeah, I don't know. I was always outside, always fishing here in Maryland. I had access kind of to the water. Like I go
Sure.
door knocking and cut people's grass, and they'd let me fish on their pier or something. And
Yeah.
just kind of always at it. And then got a job working crew on a crab boat when I was like 12 years old, helping around a fishing yard, building crab pots, doing maintenance, stuff like that. And he, started going on the boat with the captain, and I did that till I was 18, and then kind of got my own boat and started my own thing. And 10 seasons ago now, so
Yeah. So you
kind of
just
been
went
at it ever
straight.
since.
Yeah, straight to it. No, I get.
It was
I.
not pretty though. Like it was like people
Right.
see where I'm at now, and not that I'm not that I'm like made it, whatever. But like, I got retail spot. I run a big crew, big rig, all that kind of stuff. But it was like, dude, I mean, the first 5, 6 years was like literally such a hot disaster. It was like any sane person should have quit, but
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
too dumb to
just
quit.
yeah, like when you're in just the grind of building it all up. Yeah. And that's I guess you've documented a fair amount of that, right? Which is cool. Um,
The bad and the
but
ugly, man. It's real life, It's like it's not
sure.
like the tailored, your average kind of like tailored social media, I guess. It's kind of like whatever happens, happens. It's real life. Real life doesn't always go smooth. Most of the time it doesn't.
Yeah, sure. And people can relate to that. But it's interesting, man, because one thing I think that people have a hard time relating to, man, is that there's not like going into I I always think about it in the context of my life, like going into guiding or being a charter captain or whatever. But I feel like there's some analogies to being like a commercial fisherman or commercial crabber that I don't like. A lot of people can't really relate to a component of it that I don't know how to describe it, man. It's like it doesn't make rational sense. Like the amount of hard work that you've had to do. There's like 1,000 other ways you could probably make a better living. You know what I mean, Luke?
Yeah.
But then like I can say that, but you probably can't because you're wired some way that you'd be miserable if you were doing something else. You know?
I know exactly what you mean. And it's like that's common among fishermen, farmers, guides, all those kinds of things where it's just like if you look at the ROI on your time
Yeah.
and work and bandwidth and whatever, like it makes no rational sense. But it's just something that's kind of in you that just kind of I don't know. It just kind of seems like the only way to do it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Sure.
Like there's not
Sure.
really another option. Like it's just kind of that's kind of how I feel about crab, and I'm like I don't. I don't know. There's really nothing else to do for me. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's
Yeah.
kind of feel like that's what I'm made to do. you know,
Yeah, yeah. Dude, I
good,
gotta
bad, good or bad. You keep going
no,
back.
no. Yeah, I get it. And I think that part is for sure just like some people are born that way. But I gotta and I think I'm asking these questions just because I have tons of people, and I'm sure you do too, Luke, that they're really interested in like probably in your context wanting to be a crabber or wanting to be a fisherman or whatever. My world, I get literally emails every day from young guys wanting to be guides or whatever. And one thing that I think is really hard for some guys that I've seen like working for me, or I was kind of like came up the ranks with, is they're the people that are around them. They always like put that rationale in front of them, like, what are you doing? Like, Luke, what are you doing? Like, or Cliff, why don't you go do something that makes more money and is better use of your time or whatever? And for me personally, dude, like I kind of feel bad for people that have that, because I didn't have that. I didn't have people that were like that told me I was an idiot, or had that pressure. Did you have any of that, man? Did you have to deal with any of that as you kind of like went down this path?
Like people telling you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, yeah. Or people telling you like, hey, like Luke, why don't you go to college? Why don't you go do something that would be better use of your time?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, like literally any rational person would look at the
Yeah, sure.
situation and be like, "What are you doing, dude? Like, you seem like you're miserable. Like you're
Yeah,
not making any money. You're killing yourself working. Like, why do you keep going back?" But it's just like I don't know. Honestly, yeah. I mean, I got a lot of that, and
yeah,
all it's ever made me want to do is make sure I make it happen. Like, I don't know
yeah,
why. I think I'm just like a little contrarian in that way, where like if people doubt me, if they think that I can or they think I shouldn't or whatever, like, you know, it just makes me want to like that's what really drives me to like get it across the finish line. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
I
Yep.
don't know why. It's just kind of I think it's something in my nature. So it's like,
Yeah, and it
you know,
makes I mean, it makes sense. You know what I
it
mean? That
doesn't
like,
though, but it does. You know
well,
what I
no,
mean?
yeah,
Like
I mean, yeah, well, because you've committed to basically proving them wrong, which I totally get. You know, for me, I think that dude, part of me construes it as like I just didn't have much like negative pushback. Like I can't, sounds like you probably your dad could relate to what you were doing or whatever. And I didn't have a lot of, my dad was an outfitter and stuff too. So like I didn't have much of that. And also I'm like kind of been surrounded by entrepreneurs, but I also think look that people that thought I was an idiot, I just chose to ignore them. Like it was like
way to do it, man. That's a great way to
yeah,
do it. It's a lot harder to do that with social media. These
right.
days, like it's just a different era. But yeah, no, man, especially within the industry. I mean, I definitely got the most pushback like in the industry because it's such like commercial fishing is such a like closed off industry for the
Sure.
most part, and it's very generational. Like my parents weren't fishermen. My mom and stepdad that I grew up with here, they're not into the outdoors at all or whatever. But you know, so I was like first generation commercial fisherman, and like none of my family really. My dad's into the outdoors, but has no,
Yeah.
not into commercial fishing or
Yeah.
coastal anything. He's freshwater lakes, whitetail hunting. So, um, I got, I don't know, I kind of forgot where I was going there, but
No,
you know
no,
what I'm talking
dude, I know, dude. No,
about.
I totally know. I get what you're talking about, big time, man. And it's a dude. I think it's a great topic because I think a lot of people don't know what you're talking about. Look, I want you to explain it more within the context of commercial fishing, because I could explain it in the context of my world, but it's going to be different. Like when you say that it's a closed off world, like it would you get do you think you would get pressure from people when you started doing it that they didn't want you in the business because you weren't from one of like the local families that did it? Was it like that kind of extreme? Or was it like, Luke, you're never going to be able to do it because you don't have the connections and you're not part of the network already? Like what did that look like?
I mean, it was definitely kind of both. Like, I'm not from a fishing family. I'm literally first generation fisherman. So like that's not really a thing around here, especially as the
Right.
years go on. It's like really the only people for the most part that are left in it are like generational. You know what I mean? And yeah, also, you don't have the connections, you don't have the network. It takes a huge
Sure.
network to do this job. Like, you gotta what happens when you need bait? What happens when your refrigerator breaks? What happens when you need to sell the crabs? What happens when market
Yeah.
gets tight? Like if you're just a dude that's not in that circle, you have no idea. You know what I mean? Like you just
Yeah.
have
Sure.
there's no there's where do you even start? How do you even know what to do? How do you even know that those are going to be problems?
Right.
Like I literally like remember for the first year's crab and like the first year crab and like I caught some crabs, and I just thought like, oh, it's easy. Like, everybody wants crabs. Obviously, everybody in Maryland loves crabs. It's going to be,
Sure.
dude. No, that's not how it works. Like on the commercial level, like you got to find market. So that was like lesson number one was like, okay, catching the crabs is not the easy part, but we joke and say catching the crabs is the easy part, selling them's the hard part. So it's like,
Yeah.
all right, we caught crabs. What do you do with them? You don't have a refrigerator like to put them in. They got 5 hours before they're bad. You got to sell them. How are you? It's like, when you don't have that network, um, it's very hard. You got to literally start from the ground. I'm fortunate enough. The captain that I worked for, CJ, who still is another captain, he still crabs. He helped me out a lot on those kinds of fronts. At least getting me started a little bit, or at least pointing me kind of in the right directions. But it took years. I'm still figuring it out, man. But like
Yeah.
it took years even to just build that foundation to be able to do it. And then, in terms of like the other guys in the industry when I was starting out, man, like, it's cutthroat. I mean, it is cutthroat, and they don't want you out there. It it's survival of the fittest, truly. And you're not out there really to make friends. So I used to get my gear stolen, or people would just kind of fish it. Take the
Yeah.
crabs out of the pots, this and that. And it's definitely not right. But also, I can kind of see through their eyes, their perspective. Like, it's a hard life, man. It's a hard industry. These guys work hard every day, and it's cutthroat, and there's no room for part-timers, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
anymore. Like, there's no room for guys that are out there just taking up space. Like, I do not condone any of that kind of stuff. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. But if I really want to give them the benefit of the doubt, I can kind of, after getting to know a lot of people and being in the industry, you know, I can see why they wouldn't want somebody like me, like an outsider coming in and trying
Yeah.
to get a foothold in the industry. And I was number one to fail, dude. I was like, all the odds were stacked against me. Like,
Sure.
I was supposed to be the first one to drop out. And like, I talk to the guys now that I know that are the other fishermen, and they're like, yeah, like, there was no like, we always used to
Yeah.
joke, like,
we were all
there was no shot Luke was gonna make it. Like,
Yeah, we were all
dude.
taking
Yeah,
bets on when you're gonna fail or whatever.
exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And now it's like I just pushed through, put my head down, and just kind of pushed through it for years
Yeah.
and years. And you know,
Dude, I think industries that are resource based, like you could take anything, dude. You could take logging, cattle ranching, well, hunting, outfitting, even charter fishing, whatever. I think that it tends to be like that a little bit, Luke, because a lot of times those communities feel attacked constantly from the outside. You know
mhm.
what I mean? Like I don't know the dynamics for you guys, but I'm sure there's recreationists that you guys fight with. There's probably regulatory bodies that you fight with. And I feel like all that pressure tends to make industries really, really like insular about it, and about like people coming in and that sort of thing. I think that's part of it. And I'm like you, like I think it's bad business for people to, steal your crabs out of your pots or whatever. Like, just somebody you're competing with, and you wouldn't, it's not an okay thing to do. But I think I understand like the pressure they feel outside. And
Mhm.
I wanted to talk to you about that, man, because I actually think that it's hard for people to relate, Luke, to people who basically take a resource and you know uh, a public natural resource, it's crabs, right? And then you monetize it in your business and you sell it, and I think it's great. Like, somebody's got to do it, but there tends to be, and just in my lifetime it has become more so. I think it's always been a little prevalent, but in my world, and I'm sure yours, it's become more and more pressure kind of against that. Like, people don't want somebody monetizing a natural resource. Do you
Mhm.
have thoughts on that? Have you seen any shifts in that, just like in the 10 seasons that you've been crabbing?
Totally, man. I 100% agree with you. It's like people are not about it. A lot of people are not about it. But I think they just don't have a lot of people don't have a full understanding of, like, how it works. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that like, dude, we're the biggest conservationists out there. Like we are as fishermen, I'm the most dependent on the survival and the well-being of the resource. Like people think that we're just pirates and just
Right.
take and take and take till there's nothing left. And I mean, I can understand because there was a day and age of commercial fishing where it was just kind of like that, you know what I mean? But this is very different than that. There's a lot of science involved now. There's a lot of regulation. There's a lot of expensive licensing. There's, economy based around the commodity now, like
Right.
I think people don't have a great understanding of that. Like a lot of people don't have like a super great understanding. They just think we're trying to catch the last crab. But I'm the least interested person in catching the last crab. I'm the most interested in making sure there's crabs for next year, and not only some crabs, but more crabs, and trying to make sure that the resources around for if I have kids, if they want to partake
Sure.
in like commercial fishing and whatever. I mean, and same as hunters, like I think the North American hunting model has like been a huge success in terms of kind of making the hunter the like the conservationist. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
people kind of think of hunters now as the people that are interested in keeping deer around. They're in whatever else. Like, but it's not the same with commercial fishing. And I think it's just the scale people automatically think of. They think of these giant steel ships that are turning fish right into fish flakes
Right.
or whatever, and by the millions of tons. But like what we're doing is relatively small scale, sustainable fishing, commercial fishing. And
Right.
I mean,
Like it's regulated and I'm sure like any industry like this, I'm sure there's regulations that you agree with and disagree with, Luke, but
mhm,
in general, it's regulated in a way that it's for like a long-term sustainable yield of crabs, I assume, right?
yeah,
So and that makes sense. What's interesting, man, like in what you said, the North American model of wildlife management in the hunting side of things. One thing that I've noticed, man, like just my minimal experience with commercial fishing, and to be honest, dude, a lot of it is more like, well, like here in Puerto Rico, I'm exposed to it a fair amount, but it's super low scale. Like a lot of like for instance, one of the big markets here, and I mean, I compete directly with the guys when I'm spearfishing, and I'll and I'll help them sometimes too, just basically so I don't have to you know pay charter rates to go spearfishing. Like we'll spear wahoo, and then they sell them into the market, but they're literally catching, like they'll catch 5 wahoo a day and they sell them. That's like
mhm,
it's like real low level, or low volume, I would say. But what I what I was getting at is one thing that I think historically has screwed us up a little bit, and I blame hunters a little bit, and I kind of blame the North American model, or the premise of it is there's such an anti-market hunting mentality. You know what I mean? And it's illegal in the US for wild game to be harvested and then sold, right? There's anti market hunting laws. And I think what's happened is that's in some ways that's so entrenched in our thought about wildlife that it's like, well, why is fishing any different, right? And it's a logical question.
yeah,
Why is fishing any different? Like, why can they monetize crabs? Why can all the other different bluefin tuna or whatever people are commercial fishing? Why is that any different than wildlife on land? And personally, Luke, I don't think it is. I think the problem is that it's not as big of a there's not as much volume, obviously, of wildlife species like deer or elk. And I'll let I got to explain my whole position on it, or it'll get all screwed around. People will be like, "Oh, Cliff's being a bastard." But the thing,
somebody will have a sound bite of this
yeah,
and
yeah,
just turn
yeah,
into a podcast.
yeah, exactly. But I want to get your thoughts on it, because I think I think your perspective would be interesting on it. I think that market hunting is like the context is always like the buffalo hunter. sitting on like a stack of buffalo skulls or like a bunch of, a bunch of hides or whatever. And that's what you always hear, in like, that's why market hunting was banned or what, was bad. That's why we fully outlawed it. And at this point, I'm not saying that we should change the law or anything, but I think that it's not really a true perspective of monetization of a resource, because those people that like gave it a bad name, they weren't harvesting stuff for like a long-term sustainable yield. They were harvesting like as much shit as they could right now. And there was no like regulatory environment. You know what I
Yeah, it
mean?
was the opposite of that. They were trying
Yeah.
to kill off the buffalo to get rid of the Indians, essentially.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
lot of places, like
Right.
it was kill them all, kill as many as you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is not at all what, at least I think, in the US, the fishery management is about. Am I on track there? Like,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we certainly don't want to go catch the last one. We want to figure
yeah,
out ways for there to be a sustainable population, to
right.
continue to harvest and make a living from.
Yeah, and I think that, the reason I went off on the hunting, unfortunately, one of the things that's always a challenge in hunting is you have like a really dispersed user base. You know what I mean, Luke? Like, you got a bunch of hunters that, some guys go hunting once a year, some guys go hunting once every 5 years or whatever. And there is something about having people that have a ton of skin in the game. You know what I mean? Like, I'm assuming that if there's like some like big pollution issue or something where you guys do your crabbing, like crabbers are the first ones to have a problem with it,
Oh yeah, for sure.
you
That's
know.
something we deal with and talk about constantly is, you know, pollution and we're we see it first. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah,
affects
sure.
us directly. Um, all
And
those kinds of things.
yeah, and you're probably more vocal than anybody else
Yeah,
is about it. You know what I mean? Um,
yeah.
yeah. So it's an interesting. I think it's hard for a lot of people to relate to that. The concept of things getting commercialized, but in the end, like, look, I mean, it's a resource, and if it can be sustainable, why not?
That's kind of the way I feel. I mean, it's a sustainable resource. It's managed um, enough to be sustainable. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Is there any conflict between like people who want to use the same resource as a recreational? Like, I don't even know if there's recreational crabbing, Luke. So is
oh
there any of that?
yeah. There's a ton of recreational crabbing. I mean, the majority of crabbing is not the. I wouldn't say the majority of the take year after year, like poundage wise, is recreational. Although it's hard to tell because like rec guys don't have to send in any kind of like report, like whatever, like
Okay.
nothing. Um, but you know, I'd like to think that there's, it's if it's it's a renewable resource, it's a sustainable fishery. There's enough for rec guys and commercial guys. I'm not trying
Sure.
to fight. I'm not trying to fight rec guys. Like I feel like, boots on the ground, boats in the water, guys crabbing. There is some, maybe like area based competition between rec guys
Yeah,
and
sure.
commercial guys, and not every commercial guy feels the same way as I do. But I kind of feel like we live in a day and age, man, where we don't really have the luxury of being able to fight with each other anymore. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like, there's enough people pushing back against what we're doing in general, whether we're taking crabs or just kind of like it's what it seems like is like being involved in the outdoors at all.
Yeah.
That I really, I really like to try to involve rec guys, in the conversation. Like just a lot of commercial guys are like screw all the rec guys, and the rec guys say screw all the commercial guys. But I'm like, dude, we don't have.
Yeah.
There's no room to have a divide within the entire conversation. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's a classic commercial fishing thing where guys are too busy fighting with each other that they get killed by regulation or government or something else where they're too busy fighting each other to even join together to solve
Yeah.
whatever problem they may face. Like that's a classic commercial fishing problem. It's always going to be a
Sure.
problem, I'm
But it
sure.
sounds like it's gotten like a little bit well, at least you're an example of like trying to get along with each other. Cause dude,
Yeah.
it's perfectly analogous to like elk outfitting or whatever, Luke. It's exact same. Like there's conflict between outfitters, and then there's always been historical tension between outfitters and public land hunters, DIY guys.
100%. I can totally see that. And I can see it how it's a little more prevalent with like, I don't know, like with you guys, it's like there might be one big bull in the area. You know what I mean? And you can see that bull, you've watched him, whatever. Like with crabs and fish, there's a little more mystery to it. So it's like,
Yeah, sure.
it's not like you're watching one fish or one crab trying to get them. So I can
Yeah.
definitely see how that would be an issue.
Right. But it's very analogous in the sense that like there's this natural tension, but overall, and I took the same tact as you, Luke. Like I always was tried to accommodate to I tried to treat like do it yourself guys that were in the area I was hunting just like I would any other hunter. You know what I mean? I wasn't gonna like give them a bunch of info, but I was also gonna be, cordial to them, and then try not to mess up their hunt and all of that stuff. So I always tried to take that tack, but man, and I also feel like a lot of other outfitters have gone that way, but man, 30 years ago, like my dad's era and that era of outfitters, they hated the public. And it was like, I mean, there was openly like a rift. You know what I mean? Like, like there was no like talking to, it was like a totally different dynamic. I think that's gotten so much better, man.
Yeah.
So,
it's kind of half and half with crabbers, like,
okay. So it's still
I
some
try
of the
to be
old
like
school.
that, but yeah, I mean, you got to think most of the guys left crabbing are old school. Like I'm 28, but I think the average age of a commercial license holder, Maryland's 62. So
Oh,
like your
okay.
average guy out there crabbing is between the ages of 50 and 70.
Yeah.
So like they're old school.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
I'm a very different, even in the within the industry. I'm definitely an outlier as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
just being young and whatever else, and I kind of have a little bit of a different perspective on it, just because I came up in a different era of it.
Yeah,
Like
sure.
also had different examples of guys that I was captains that I was working under, and how they treated those situations and whatever else.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, and dude, maybe also you had less problems than they have. Like that's a lot of the old school outfitters do. That's what they tell me. They're like, "Oh, Cliff, you get along with the public because they're less annoying now than they used to be." I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, I don't know.
Who
I try
knows?
to be, I'm not out there trying to make best friends with all these people, but like I try to treat them with the respect and
Keep the
decency
peace.
that yeah, exactly. To
Yeah.
just, I want to be, you leave me alone, I leave you alone. You know what I mean? That's kind of like,
Yeah.
that's
That's
kind
the
of how
same.
like
Yeah.
I treat other, that's kind of how crabbers try to treat each other, is like, well, a lot of times there's reasons that guys don't have jobs on land. I'll say that. So like, it's just best to keep to yourself. You know what I mean? Like you got your buddies, you got guys that you definitely don't like. Like there is definitely tension between
that's
captains and all of that,
any industry that's like competitive for sure.
and commodity
No.
based.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. Even more so. Dude, on that, what's the word, Luke? Is this Trump tariff stuff going to be relevant to you guys? Is there any word on that in the seafood business?
Man, I'll be honest. I don't pay attention to politics a
Yeah.
whole lot. I try to kind of stay out of the weeds when it comes to that stuff. Just that can be a slippery slope, especially when you're, online and whatever, as much as I am. So I don't know. Honestly, I haven't looked into it a whole lot, just
Well,
because
here's a question, like more in the, I guess, like more in the context of what you do. Do you guys compete? I mean, in your commodity, the crabs that you catch, but maybe just like there's other stuff in that local resource pool or whatever. Do you compete with international markets?
my biggest competition is international market.
Okay.
Like most of the crab meat around here is not even from the States. It's from Venezuela or I can't. The Philippines is a big one. Most of it's Venezuelan, and it's not even a Calanectus sapidus, which is the blue crab that we have here in the States. It's a blue swimmer crab that looks similar, tastes similar, but it's not even the same crab. And that really is my biggest competition because they don't have any kind of sustainability based regulation over there, and
Right.
labor's a lot cheaper. So when it comes to crab meat, like picked meat, um, that is definitely our biggest competition. Like
Sure.
95% of the crab meat in Maryland, used in Maryland in restaurants, is foreign crab meat, actually, because
Right.
they can get it so much cheaper than you can even catch it and pick it and pack it in our own backyard. They can get it caught, packed, pasteurized, shipped across the ocean, shipped to the grocery store, labeled, all that, for less than we can even do it here,
Right.
unfortunately. And it's hard to tell the difference. I mean, in the meat, but it's also kind of become the industry standard, unfortunately, when it comes to restaurants, because of the price point.
Sure.
So people wouldn't even really know the difference. And it's really hard to track. That's the other thing is like, you know, it's so hard to tell where the crab meat's coming from. Like if you buy crab, like I was in Costco, I was looking at some, crab products there, like crab dip and this and that. And, it boasts that it's wild caught. That's the big thing. And
Hmm.
wild caught crab. Okay, well, it's wild caught crab from another country that's not a blue crab. And since it's just the crab is an ingredient in this thing, it doesn't have to tell you origin of the meat. But I can
Okay.
tell by the price point that it's definitely not domestic, crab meat that they're using in this thing.
Right.
So it's like it's just such a hard thing to track too, And then there's all these scandals all the time of people repacking meat.
Faking
They'll
it.
get
Yeah.
they'll get meat from overseas and then repack it, or they'll mix it with domestic meat and repack it. So I mean, it's tough to tell, man. It's tough, but that's the stuff that screws our market up real bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's like, that's kind of why I was thinking about this, maybe for crabs it won't actually matter because I don't think any of the tariffs are going to go on like any of the South American countries. I may be wrong, but it's like an interesting question, Luke. It's like, all right, so you guys have a certain set of rules, right? That you're abiding by labor laws, all your regulatory stuff, but you have to compete with people selling against you that have no rules.
Yeah, and
It's like,
it's the same market, like the
yeah,
same audience that we're catering to. Like the wild one to me is shrimp. Like shrimp and tilapia are two
yeah,
that are very easy to farm. Well, I mean, not like I've obviously never done it, but I'm saying like it's
they got it figured out.
they got it figured out, and they can do it all over the world extremely cheaply. And if people knew like the shrimp that are coming from overseas, if they saw where they were coming from, like the facilities, what they're literally feeding them like crap. Um,
Yeah,
People would never buy it in a million years, but it ends up in the grocery store. You don't see any of that kind of stuff, and people think, well, it must be the same as the wild caught shrimp. It must be the same thing, you know what I mean? But
sure.
the wild caught shrimp's a couple more dollars a pound. They're just going with the cheaper one. But it's like, holy crap, dude! Like, man, if you only knew, people would never eat that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, like the difference, and it's like, and you could break it. Dude, I saw the craziest thing, Luke. I saw this. Maybe it was on Instagram or something, but I saw these guys. They had these big. They were yellowfin or bluefin tuna, and they were obviously like they were coming off a boat or something, and they had been graded where they like down, like, and they did like the like how like like the loins on a tuna. There's like four of them, and they had them all loined out already, and
Mm-hmm.
the loins were like real gray, like you could tell they weren't that like fresh red color on the tuna, dude. And
Mm-hmm.
they put them through this process, and these were big tuna, like they were probably 150-pound tuna. They put those loins through this process, dude, and they came out the other end, and it was in China or somewhere else.
And they came out and they looked completely fresh. And literally, dude, they like soaked them in this red dye and like injected the dye into them. It was, when I saw that, I was like, oh man, dude, like that's scary, dude. Cause
Dude,
it looked
it's
good when it
nuts.
was done. But I'm
Yeah.
like, man, like that's, like what's
It,
going on?
and how are you going to tell? How your
Yeah,
normal consumer can never tell. It's hard for anybody really to tell. Like that's a classic one they did with farm raised salmon. Like there's a lot of good farm raised salmon out there,
sure.
but there's a lot of bad farm raised salmon too, where like you'll see the fillets before they basically impregnate them with dye and puff them up with water and whatever, and they're like it's like gray. Like you
Yeah,
would never ever want to eat that, but it comes out the other side and it's like what everybody thinks of salmon. It's like
sure.
orange. It's like
Yeah.
like most real wild salmon is like red, you know.
Yeah.
But like the salmon everybody's used to seeing is like light orange. It's
Yeah,
just
sure.
so I don't know, so weird, so hard to tell, especially for a consumer.
Yeah, sure. And that's just at the actual product level too, man. If you dig into like what's going on these boats and stuff like that, like it's if you get into like the labor stuff, it's like next level. Like, I don't know.
Squid and all this crazy stuff,
Yeah,
dude. Yeah, it's like it's there's a lot of stuff that ain't pretty,
yeah,
and they're what we're doing here in the Chesapeake is highly regulated, small,
sure,
small scale fishery, mom and pop shop. It's not, we don't have corporate boats. It's all actual families, that are being supported by the resource and by the fishermen and, whatever else. Like that's a lot of what I try to do with, a lot of my videos and kind of the presence that I have online is like kind of remind people of like, there when you choose to buy local sustainably caught seafood, from the US, it really does, it really does help us out. It keeps the
sure.
food, it keeps the money in town. And you really are helping put food on a real fisherman's family's table. Like there really is real effects from that. And it's not only just the fishermen, but it's all the economy around the fishermen as well. It's the guys that are building the boats, the guys that are building, repairing the gear. The guy that's driving the truck to pick up the seafood, the guy that's shucking the oysters at the shucking house, the guy that's running the canning machine, the guy that's working at the grocery store, like, and all that. If when you buy local seafood, you can keep more of that money in your hometown, supporting the people that you do know, keeping kind of coastal fishing towns alive,
Right. Yeah. And it's like, I think a good point to be made is that like when you're not buying it locally, you can't. This is just how I think about it, Luke. Now that I think I got pretty decent context on it, is like I could argue like, well, I'm supporting that in another country, so whatever, right? Yeah, so I'm an American. I should support it locally within an American community. That's I personally feel that way. But I could see somebody make an argument. Well, I'm supporting some fishing village somewhere else, and it's like from what I've seen, you're not. You might be
No.
supporting a boat with basically indentured servants on it that are catching fish. You know what I mean? Like in some places, that's what the fishing industry is kind of like. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? In some other countries, so it's like it can kind of be. It's like, I don't know, because you don't know anything about it. There's like no transparency of like what's going on, where that stuff came from. So it's a wild
Yeah.
world,
And it's a middleman, especially if it's coming from, from overseas or something. Like the money's not, you'd like to think that, the humble fisherman in another country
Right.
that's in a log canoe is, getting more money for their catch and we're supporting their family. But I think the reality of the situation is a little more grim where,
Yeah.
they're basically having to go do this job in poor conditions and getting paid the bare minimum for their product. And it's really all they can do, and
Yeah.
the whoever's middle manning that product is probably, keeping the price really low on them so that they don't have the ability to kind of expand or scale or anything like that. And then, doing what they can to make the most on the other end of it.
Sure. But a main thing is there's just no transparency. You just don't know. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Which I feel
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's
How do you
pretty,
know? I'd love to
yeah.
go over there and like actually see it, like boots on the ground, and like go
Sure.
try to, see that kind of stuff. But there's really nothing, like there's very little information or anything about it. Like it's just so
Yeah.
hard to tell.
Yeah.
Um,
No, absolutely, man. It is. It's one of those things that you just don't know. But it's interesting, man. You're kind of vertically integrated, huh? You sell quite a bit of your crab direct, like through your
Hmm.
stand.
Yeah.
Like, do you sell all of it that way, Luke?
Yep.
Oh, you do. Okay.
Yeah. I even buy from some other local fishermen now.
Oh, okay, sweet. So
Hmm.
you're like everybody knows exactly where when they buy it from you, they know exactly where they're getting it. Do you do any shipping or subscription box stuff or anything like that?
Yeah. So I do shipping as well. Yeah. So you could buy like my crabs and get them shipped anywhere in the country. In the season, they'll show up steamed already. I partner with a restaurant called Jimmy's Famous Seafood to do the shipping and all that kind of stuff.
How do
But
they? I'm naive, Luke, but how do they show up? Like you steam them and then they're cooled down and shipped, or how
mhm,
is that how it works? Are they frozen?
yeah, no, not really frozen. They're just we put them on ice,
Oh, okay,
or packed in with ice packs. So uh, it's just hard to ship live seafood.
sure,
So we steam them so they're fresh, so they're live when they get steamed.
yeah.
Um, you know, from the boat, I catch them on the boat, drive them to the restaurant. They steam them. As soon as they steam them, they cool them down, put them in a cooler box, pack them with dry ice, and then they're either overnighted or
Oh,
two
that's
days to
cool.
wherever you are in the country. And
Yeah,
they show up with everything you need to eat them. So, and we
sweet.
have crab cakes as well. We have some other like crab related products that are using either my crab meat or other crab meat that's local.
Yeah,
Like caught in the state and everything.
yeah, but it's a little more processed, so it can be shipped easier, probably, and all
Yeah,
that.
so we have crab cakes and stuff, and they're smaller, like 5 ounces, 8 ounces, stuff like that, so that we can vacuum seal those and freeze them and send them.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Some people don't like to pick the crab. I don't blame them. I always say like
Yeah,
blue
yeah.
crab's the only crab you could starve trying to eat.
Yeah,
So
just the work
it's a
involved.
social food. It's a social food.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Dude,
then
oh, sorry, go ahead, Luke.
I was just saying, but yeah, all the crabs. To answer your question, like all the crabs I catch on the boat are sold directly to the customer live. If
Oh,
they're
okay.
not steamed and shipped, we sell them live direct to the customer at my retail spot.
Yeah, I gotcha. That's cool, man. Um, I don't think I've ever eaten a blue crab, dude. I'm embarrassed to say that.
Man, we'll have to change that, dude. I'll have to
Yeah,
when you're
yeah, I
back
have
in
to
the
go
States, man, I'll
I
have to send you some.
have to come out and check it out, dude.
Cliff's Hunter, I created this knife from iteration in the field. It has been modified and perfected for the backcountry use case. It is my belief that in terms of all around knives, this is the last knife that an elk hunter, mule deer hunter, sheep hunter, goat hunter will need to buy. Go check it out on my website, pursuitwithcliff.com. In the top right, click shop, then Cliff's Hunter. All the details are there.
Are they eaten? Are they ever eaten like where you eat the shell?
Yeah, so they have soft crabs as well,
Okay.
which is just a blue crab that's sloughed, shed its
Yeah.
shell, and then it's the entire crab, but it's like buttery soft. So
Yeah.
you can clean it and then just eat the entire crab. Most people fry them. That's like the
Yeah.
traditional way to do it. But yeah, we shed crabs too. Like my little operation, we have some shedding tanks where we'll catch the crabs that are called peeler crabs that show sign on their fins that they're going to shed soon. So they're
Oh,
either
okay.
I can tell if they're a week out, a day out, an hour out by the different sign that they'll show, and then we'll put them in tanks accordingly. And then when they shed out of their shell, you have about 2 hours to catch them before they're too hard. We call it a paper shell. Um, Too hard to eat as a soft crab. So
Oh, so
like
they
there's a
like a
lot of labor involved in getting them.
oh, okay, because it's like a really specific time.
Yeah. So like
I
as
gotcha.
soon as they shed, they're too soft. So they need about half an hour to just kind of like be able to support themselves so they don't die when you pull them out of the water.
I gotcha.
But then after that, you have about 2 hours to get them, or else they're going to be too hard and
They get too
you
hard.
know, yeah, they're not good to eat anymore.
I gotcha. I notice it when I'm diving for lobsters. Lobsters kind of do the same, at least the
Hmm.
ones down here do. Like sometimes I'll reach in and grab a lobster and I'll be like, whoa, that thing is like like this, like,
Right.
I'm like expecting because they're getting so hard. And the ones down here have spikes all over them. So yeah, I
Oh
have to
yeah.
grab them pretty solid. But like I'll grab one every like once in a blue moon and be like, what the hell is going on with that? And it must have like just recently shed or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They freak people out a little bit because it's like the whole crab is just like jelly. It's like,
Yeah,
it's kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
weird. To me, it's
Yeah.
normal, but other people are like, what the heck? You eat the whole thing?
Yeah,
Whole
no,
crab.
it's cool though. Dude, let's finish off with some hunting stuff, man. Uh, I watched your dude. I don't want to. Is it Sika deer? Sika
Deer. Sika deer.
Sitka deer. Okay, all right. Um, I'd had no idea that you guys even had them until I actually guided a guy this last year at a place on an elk hunt, and I think he's from the exact same region as you are, and he had them on his property, and he was telling me, like, "Dude, I didn't even know they had those in the U.S." So explain, yeah, to us like where they're at and what the story on them is.
Yeah, so like Sika deer are like, they're like these tiny Asian deer. It's kind of like,
They look like a little elk, little
yeah, they
mini elk.
do. They
Yeah,
bugle. They have little antlers, just like elk. You use an elk call to like call them.
yeah.
Super neat. They eat really well. They're itty bitty. Like they're like, I don't even know. They're kind of like a goat. They're kind of like the size of a goat, and they're kind of like hunting goats too. They're real weird. They don't kind of have the same mannerism as like a whitetail. They're kind of
Okay.
random in their patterns, and like they're aquatic. They love the water, so they
Yeah, I saw
spend
you
most
guys.
of their
You guys
time
are
living in the
hunting them in like
marsh.
the swamp. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, like you can hunt them out of boat, so you can, like you, yeah, they like the most inhospitable, most miserable environment you can ever fathom. Like
sure.
just like saltwater marshes full of mosquitoes is like their favorite
Yeah,
place to be. Um, so yeah, we did shoot a video going down this last hunting season, and camping out and hunting and whatever else. But yeah, they're on like the lower eastern shore of Maryland. I think they have some in Delaware and Virginia as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't think they're anywhere else really in the States. I mean, maybe like, uh, and they're not really considered an exotic. I mean, they are, but they've been here for so long. Like, I
because
think they've been here like,
you guys have a season for them, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's become incredibly popular to come hunt them. It used to
yeah,
be like a thing nobody did. Like,
yeah.
they were just pests, and
Sure.
people didn't like them because they wanted to hunt whitetails. Um, but I mean, unfortunately, the story around here, it has become increasingly popular to hunt them, and there's trucks from all over the place during gun
Hmm.
season, especially to hunt these things. I mean, literally, I've seen trucks from like almost every state, I think, at gates that are like 2 hours from my house. So it's like
Right.
crazy to see a Wisconsin tag, in the
Yeah.
middle of the freaking swamp, like in the middle of nowhere. A lot of people blame Steve Ranella for going because
Oh, okay.
he
He's
did a
only?
couple episodes on it, but
Oh, okay.
I don't think you can blame him. I don't blame him. I think it's literally just it's social media in general. Like people just want to
Sure.
pin it on somebody, whatever. But it's just the fact that like people are shooting them and they're putting them online, and then it's like it's not that hard to figure out where you're doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's not that
And
many places. Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah.
there's literally like 3 states you can shoot them in, so it's not that hard. Like people want to blame, you know, people for, specific hunters that are popular in media for blowing it up, but it's like, dude, come on now. It's only a matter of time. Like you can't, you know, people say the same thing
Yeah.
about me and crabbing. It's like,
Oh,
no,
do they? Like in what way? Luke, like,
just like, people don't, a lot of the crabbers don't want me putting stuff online and saying I'm exposing it. I'm going to create, I'm going to make everybody want to go crabbing and I'm going to tank the market. And it's like, dude, if you watch me and you really want to go crabbing and you go out there and you buy a boat, you buy a rig, you buy a license, you find a crew that shows up that's not hopelessly addicted to drugs, and you go out there and you figure out how to crab, and you figure out how to keep the boat running, you figure out market, you figure out how to get bait, then you didn't need me. Like I didn't do
good
that
on
for
you.
you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like good on
Yeah.
you because you did it,
Yeah.
not me. Like maybe it's it's such a hard thing to do that you're
Yeah,
not
like
gonna
you're
watch
not
a YouTube video and go
Yeah.
be a commercial crabber. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. No, but it's fun. I mean, the hunting's so similar, dude. It's kind of hilarious. But that there's people that are always gonna have that opinion, right? Of any exposure to something they enjoy. And I mean, the truth is, like on the Sika deer, like yeah, it probably did change it. Just exposure. you know.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Definitely.
there's no doubt about that, that things do change because, you know, some new trend. I've seen that a lot in like different types of hunts. You know, they get popular for this reason or that reason. This guy's doing or that guy's doing them, and then they get a little more popular, you know.
I
But
think elk hunting is like huge now, like
oh yeah,
because it's like, you know, all the guys that have a lot of exposure are, you know, they're big elk hunters. And
yeah,
so like, you know, I think there's more people. I mean, it made me want to go try to elk hunt. I was like,
sure.
I knew about elk, but I didn't know anything about it. I'm like, holy crap, that's like, it's amazing. That looks like an awesome part of the country. It's so different than what I do. Like, it made me want to go try it. Um, so, you know, I think elk hunting is like probably the biggest one right now. You know,
Yeah.
everyone wants to go do an elk hunt. Lucky for you.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one, man, because it's weird. Like ever since I was a little kid, like it was always like a very, it was always like the 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 species that everybody like from the East Coast was coming out west. They wanted to kill an elk. Like that was always the case, like in the outfitting business. But it was it really like took off in the last like I'd say like 8 or 9 years. It became like just an obsession, particularly archery elk hunting. You know,
Yeah.
I talk about that a lot with guys, and you see it in everything, dude. Like the market for hunts, the market for access, like all that, like it's astronomically higher than it used to be. And
Mhm.
to your point, I mean, it is it's based on 3 or 4 people, you know, a half dozen people who with giant exposure that are big elk hunters, you know, Rogan, Cam Haines, all those guys. They're all good guys. Like I don't blame them, but for sure that's an element of the exposure, you know.
Yeah, and I think that, but I don't think it's all necessarily a bad thing either. You know,
No,
I think like bringing it into the, you know, kind of forefront, you know what I mean, and making it kind of like a relevant thing in, you know, pop culture or whatever is like it could be really good for it, you know, because
yeah,
there's a lot of people that are pushing against hunting and fishing and commercial fishing and guiding and whatever else, and so having it kind of at the forefront and, you know, whatever, I think actually can be to the benefit of the entire big picture in a lot of
yeah.
ways.
No, I totally agree, Luke, and I generally agree that anything that like in my little world, man, anything that gets primarily man, like my audience is 99% man, and it's like anything that I think gets guys out in the outdoors, whatever, backpacking, fishing, boating, hunting, whatever, I think is positive because I know so many guys that I get contacted by them all the time that like some shift to that in their life, like literally changed them psychologically, made them happier, less depressed, whatever, you know, more successful in other things they're doing. So I'm a huge proponent of it. Totally. I think the challenge is for people who are really like they're unwilling to adapt. You know what I mean? It's like, look, if elk hunting is too expensive, don't feel bad about doing other hunts. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's all good. It's all fun. So I think that might be like a little slight negative component of it, but that's more just
Yeah.
people have to be adaptable and
Right.
choose whatever makes sense for them and what's accessible to them. So, you know, it's like your deer there or whatever. Like, sounds like a pretty cool adventure, particularly it's like right out your back door. You know,
Yeah.
so but no, I think I agree with you, dude. It's all good. Do you I have to ask, man, do you get much like on your videos and that sort of thing? Do you get much censorship or like pressure on any of that stuff?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, it kind of comes in waves. It's weird. It's like, you know, on Instagram in particular, it seems like once or twice, probably like twice a year, like I'll go into the deep settings and find out that I've had like, you know, every post that involves, you know, an animal or something like flagged and reported and taken down or, you know, demonetized or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Like, you know, I do a lot of live streaming. I did a lot more live streaming before, but I still do a lot of live streaming right on the boat,
yeah.
um,
Okay.
where, you know, when we're like crabbing in real time. So that's like one of the other things if you want to order crabs or buy crabs from me, like you can watch us in real time on the boat catch the crabs and then come buy them. But anyway,
Oh, okay. So
anytime,
that like those are the crabs that he caught today.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah, you can watch us actually catch them in the live chat. But it was like anytime. I know if I ever see one of those live streams start to really blow up, like I've had a couple that have blown up, like, I don't even know, like we had like 8 million people or something watch one time. Like it was this monster live stream, but like every time they get up around those million marks, I know it's going to get shut down because there's like so many people that are seeing us doing it that are reporting us for like, animal abuse or something like that, or animal cruelty.
Yeah.
We're literally just crabbing, like, so you're just watching us work, like,
Yeah.
So I know anytime one of those gets too big, it's inevitably it gets shut down every single time. But yeah, I mean, it's tough, man. I don't really know what to do about it.
Yeah,
I
no.
wish there was like some kind of, but yeah, I definitely see it.
Yeah.
Like,
I had to ask, dude, and not to like discount the pain that you feel, man, but it kind of makes me feel better, Luke, because all my stuff gets,
I believe it. Yeah,
you know what I
I
mean?
totally
Like,
believe it.
yeah. So I'm like,
I don't know
oh,
how
did
some of like the
he?
real hunting guys like you guys do it. Like it's your whole thing, and it's like
Yeah, no,
every
dude.
single thing you do like violates their community guidelines. I'm like,
I,
that's how do you
yeah,
even make it happen? That's insane. Like I don't know how
it's
you guys
hard. I
do
mean,
it.
well, it's hard, and then like, I mean, for me to hear that, like, you're getting your balls busted on crabbing, it's like, dude,
Yeah.
how insane is that, dude? It makes me wonder. I've never been a conspiracy theorist in my life, Luke, but there is a part of it that's like, dude, is this like literally people want, like, on purpose not wanting people to be exposed to like the food system? Because other than that, I don't get the logic they would like demonetize or censor some guys catching crabs.
Dude, I don't know, man. I have no idea. I don't know what the deal is. It certainly the internet sphere system, whatever, certainly doesn't seem to favor, you know, I don't know, like the fiercely independent. You know what I
No,
mean?
yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not really a conspiracy theorist either, but I do see what you're saying. I have no
Yeah,
idea why it
it's
happened. It's
weird.
just kind of like I see it, I'm like, dang, that what are you
Yeah.
gonna do? I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, I don't know the answer to it either, but I think it's like very odd, like that it's a thing, you
Yeah,
know. But
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
it's crazy that I would figure that maybe you would get it on some of the hunting stuff you do. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
definitely
But
get it on the hunting stuff. You can count
yeah,
on that.
yeah, that's a given.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, it
Cool.
surprises me too sometimes. Like I've even had pictures of like just holding crabs or something that have gotten like flagged or like another one that's weird is any video I've ever had that involves a snakehead fish, right? Which is like, have
Okay.
you ever heard of those? It's like an invasive
Hmm.
species. They're
Yep.
like, they kind of look like a lungfish. It's like this goofy looking thing. Well, they're invasive species here. But for some reason, I don't know what it has to do with the snakehead fish. Every single video I've ever made about snakeheads has gotten flagged, reported, taken down. I mean, it's like, it's not like
Yeah.
I'm cutting them open or anything like that. It's just like, if I even say it or if it's in the title or if I hold one in front of the camera, it gets taken down. I'm like, that's insane. Like, I don't know how like
Yeah.
the algorithms picked up on like that one specific fish or something. I was like,
Yeah,
that's
for some
wild.
reason it's picking up on that. Yeah, I don't
I
know,
have
dude.
no idea.
I've kind of noticed like little things in mine too that'll trigger it, and then I try to
Yeah.
avoid like using that term or whatever. But
Yeah.
I don't
Definitely.
know. I mean, the reality is, it's like it's more just it's a pain in the ass. You know what I
Yeah, it
mean?
is.
That you got to kind
You
of
just gotta like tiptoe. I feel like you're always on
yeah,
like
always,
eggshells. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah, for sure.
and there's
Yeah,
no retribution either. Like there like forgiveness is not a thing on the internet, whether it be people,
no,
people public when it comes to public opinion or comes to like the way algorithms run the back end of social media, like people have completely forgotten about any, there's no sort of coming back from anything. It's like it's a
yeah.
shame. You know what I mean?
Have you ever had your Instagram just like it's gone?
My Instagram.
But or like, have you ever like woken up and, like, your Instagram's like locked?
Oh yeah, dude. I had one time where I lost it for like 2 months or something like that. I had to like get deep into the weeds, bro, of like finding a contact at Meta to like I was literally like on my other platforms trying to figure out if I had anybody that followed, this was years ago, like followed
Yeah,
me
yeah.
that worked for Meta that could help me like, figure out how to get Instagram back. Um I think I had like 78,000 followers, but I was like verified before you could buy a blue check mark. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And all that kind of stuff. And it was some kind of like copyright infringement that somebody had reported on like this crazy story. I
Yeah.
had built this like wooden origami door, right? And that was
Okay.
actually the very first viral video I ever had before I did any crabbing content, anything ever. Like I just built this thing as a project, and
Okay.
I put it on the internet. Well, apparently the guy that owns the like I found a picture of it on Pinterest, like of
Okay.
this
And
of
did
this
and did your
origami
own
door.
version of
Yeah, I
it?
made it out of pallets, and it wasn't even the guy that had the copyright things. Um, but I just seen this thing on Pinterest, reverse engineered it from the pictures. It's around the internet. Like I'm not the first guy to do it. I made one out of pallets, but I put it on TikTok, and like the video got a couple million views. And then literally years later, my Instagram goes boom, gone. Come to find out that I guess the guy that owns the rights to the design of that specific door that I had built that I had seen on Pinterest lives in Austria and had found that video from years and years and years ago and filed like some kind of copyright infringement against me. Like the most
That's
bananas, like
wild. And you
around the
didn't get
back thing from
eh,
another country. Like I had no idea. I had no clue. I'd never heard of this dude. I did not copy his thing on purpose. Like none of that.
and
And
no
dude, you'd never know.
no forewarning, nothing.
Dude, nothing. Yeah, I just like went on. It was gone. So like, then it was like trying to figure out why it had gone, missing, and then like, to reverse engineer that whole thing, and then find a contact at Meta, and then like, I ended up having to get like a lawyer or something. I think like,
Yeah, yeah, you
dude,
figured it
it
out.
was it
Dude,
was wild. It was like
it's
it's so crazy.
that kind of stuff scares me, Luke, because it's like probably people who are listening to this are like, well, why do you guys care? It's like, well, I mean, let's be honest, like this
Part of
social
your
media,
business.
yeah, like this social media, even if like Luke, you're in like the content is actually like a big part of your business, and for me, it is too much less so. But the other part of it is this is modern day marketing, like
Mm-hmm.
this is it. Like,
Yeah,
like your website is way less relevant than your Instagram or YouTube or whatever, right?
I don't
So
even have a website. I
yeah,
should,
yeah, yeah.
but like,
But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and I think it's so like imagine back, 15 years ago, if just the website that was your only exposure on the internet just vanished.
yeah,
And somebody had like basically had you by the balls and was like, well, your website's just gone. It's like,
yeah.
well, what? It's a big deal.
Yeah, yeah. People are like, "Oh, what do like it's stupid Instagram." It's like, yeah, but yeah, it's a lot of work. You know how it is. Like,
Oh
man,
yeah,
it's a
it's
big part of
huge.
business, and
Yeah, yeah.
you got a lot of time and energy into that thing, dude. It's like you don't want to just lose it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, no. Well, it's an important part of your business, and it's like how people find you and everything else. I think I hope that stuff gets figured out, Luke, because I think, dude. My personal opinion is it distorts what everybody does on social media because everybody's they're so worried about some retribution all the time that the whole thing is fake. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? The whole thing is like an alternative reality. And it's because of this, dude. And like I'm guilty of it. Like there's for sure now, like, I mean, I would love to show people like there's tons of like I love taking, field dressing elk, and I feel like I'm pretty efficient at it. Like I've done it a ton of times. And there's a lot of little bitty tricks that I love showing people. I don't put any of it on there anymore,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
because if I
it's just not worth it, man. It's like, and it's a
no,
bummer because you want to show that kind of stuff because it's
yeah,
part of like the grid of what you do. It's part of what you do,
yeah,
but it's like it's just not worth the juice. Just isn't worth the
no,
squeeze, unfortunately, because it's like, dude, why am I gonna? Just think about it logically. You can't risk losing all this time investment and whatever in this part of your business over like this one little thing. It's like Yeah, and like everybody wants to be the guy that's like, oh, I don't care, whatever. But it's like there's been plenty of those guys, and there they are,
Vanished.
they're
Yeah.
making a new Instagram every other month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Playing catch up. Like it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
there's a
No,
lot of power in podcasting. You know what I mean? That's kind of like the new frontier of media.
yeah,
It seems like.
it's weird.
The
Well,
free frontier.
I don't know why podcasting like doesn't get I mean, I guess probably because the distribution is like decentralized. It doesn't have as much problems,
Not yet.
Yeah, exactly, Luke. And the thing is like I don't know what you have found with your YouTube, but everybody bashes YouTube, but I have much less problems with it on YouTube too.
Less problems with that kind of stuff on YouTube. I'm also
Yeah.
I'm not a hunting channel necessarily. I do some hunting videos, but like, I try to stay within the bounds as much as I can, be kind of conservative with what I'm, doing, putting up there. But I have way less problems with YouTube.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, YouTube's kind of my favorite. You know what I mean? They
Yeah,
seem to
you
be the
thought
most accepting, and you can email somebody at YouTube and be like, like, is this going to be? I was trying to figure that out. I have a flintlock. Went flintlock deer hunting I went with my brother, and we shot a video doing that. I wanted to have the flintlock in the thumbnail, and we just reached out to YouTube, and they were like, shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah,
like they obviously
sure.
it's an algorithm, so they don't know like 100%, but they were like, you can at least talk to somebody. Like, dude, Meta, there's nobody on the other side of Meta,
No.
at all. Like, it's literally all just a automated whatever. Like, very frustrating.
Yeah. Well, I was laughing because Zuckerberg was on Rogan, and he's like, you got this feel from the conversation that is going to change. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then like the next day, I post something up on Instagram. And I noticed that like I know immediately without even looking, because I can tell just like how many people see my stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, something happened. And like I click into whatever the setting is to see my account status, and it's like, whatever, like you have 50 violations on all these, because that's how it happens for me, Luke, is I get piles of them at once. You know what I mean?
That's how
like
it happens with me too. But then it's like unavoidable. Then they're like, then you have these strikes. It's like, and even if you appeal them, the strike stays. It's like, okay, they might put your content back up, but you still have to hold the strike. It's like, dang, there's no winning.
Yeah. And then once you're like in the zone, you're like, oh, don't put anything up. Like, I guess it's just going to be pictures of like me carving pumpkins for the next 6 months because I'm afraid like this is my thing. So, but yeah, it's an interesting conversation because I do feel like YouTube, they kind of go by the rules. Like the times that I've had issues, to be honest, Luke, with YouTube, it was because I broke a rule that I didn't know. And that's my fault. It's not their fault. You know what I mean? Like, like there's firearm things I've done that I thought were perfectly fine. Like, what they would consider modifications of firearms that didn't cross my mind that'd be a problem. And it's against their rules. So it's stuff like that I get, man. They got their rules, whatever. I may not agree with them, but they got rules. I can read them,
Yeah.
So that's all I ask, man, is I just wish you could read it. But anyways, it's interesting stuff. It'll be interesting to see how it all evolves,
I hope something changes, man, because it's like I feel like all social media is like twisted into this corner right now where everything is like so. It doesn't matter what you do, say, what your opinion is, whatever. There's somebody out there that can be like trying to, I don't know, end it for you. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I know what you're saying. It's like it's gotten so extreme. It's like, dude, how are you even supposed to keep doing it?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what you do. Somebody could have a major problem with it, and then you have to cater to them, and that means doesn't matter if you lose whatever. As long as you didn't upset them. I guess it's okay. I don't know.
I don't know either, dude. At a small scale, and I think maybe this is like interesting to people that aren't even in like the social media world, but at a small scale, dude, I've just tried to like distribute to like different platforms. I've even tried to like get active on Twitter and stuff like that, just because, at least for me, dude, like I'm on the edge. Let's be honest. Like, just given my category, like my Instagram could be gone any day, whatever. And so like it's like, well, follow me on Twitter, and then if I vanish on Instagram, I guess I'll be there.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer,
Diversifying is really the name of the game. I think that's what made
but
the
it's
biggest
hard. It's
difference for
hard
my
work
stuff.
though.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's hard work, but yeah, I don't know what the story is. I guess so our conclusion for everybody is just go follow us on YouTube
Yeah, I guess so.
for now.
Wherever you want to watch, it's like Facebook. The biggest issue I have with Facebook is all the fake profiles, like all the fake accounts.
Oh
Like I'm
yeah.
not kidding. There's probably like 100 fake Luke McFaddens on Facebook, and some of them have like almost as many followers as I do. I'm like, dang, they're doing pretty
Yeah.
good. It's like I should just set up a bunch of my own fake pages to rip my own stuff off, beat them to it. But
Yeah. No, I know.
but,
Yeah. Are they maliciously like trying to scam people, or is it just people just ripping off your content?
dude, well, both. Like
Yeah.
I've had all kinds of issues, but when I'm running the crab stand, a lot of times what they'll do is like use my crab ads, but put a fake, something in there, fake website or something, or like
Yeah.
message people pretending to be me, saying that they're going to ship them crabs or this or that, and then steal their credit card information.
Yeah. Yep.
I've had that like a bunch of times, and fake GoFundMe's for stuff, and I mean, you name it. It's like, holy crap, these people are like, they got some time on their hands, dude. You could just go get a real job and probably
Do better. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I've had the same thing, like probably much smaller scale than you, but I for sure have had guys, message me on other platforms, be like, "Hey, Cliff, are you giving away Hoyt bows?" Like, no.
Oh yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? Like, this guy's asking for 1,000, like, or he's asking for $200 in shipping via Western Union. I'm like, dude.
yeah. I know. I try to tell people, I'm like, don't like. I will never message you and ask you for credit card information. That should be pretty obvious, but
Yeah.
like sometimes you just gotta re-explain it, I guess.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I think people are getting pretty savvy to it, but it's one of those things. But hey, Luke, awesome conversation, man. I enjoyed talking to you, dude. We'll have to get together and do a hunt or something, man.
Yeah, man, I'd totally be down, dude. Let's do it.
For
If
sure.
you ever want to come crabbing, man, you let me know, or
Yeah,
do whatever.
that'd be.
You ever find yourself in the Northeast?
Yeah, no
spot on the boat, man.
No, for sure. I have to say, dude, I'll the invite I'll give you is I'd love to take you hunting, and we can always do that. But I did watch your video where you went oyster diving, and I was like, oh, I got to get Luke diving.
Dude, I would love to get into diving. I would love to do
Yeah. Okay. So and I caught that vibe a little bit towards the end of that video that you were willing to give it a couple more goes.
Yeah, that was like that was a terrible experience because I went with my buddy. I had never been diving. I was in a wetsuit, but I didn't have any weight on me at first.
Yeah, sure.
So like I couldn't get down. And I just kept popping back up. So I was like wearing myself out. And then my buddy gave me his dive belt, but weighs like twice as much as I do.
Sure.
So I put it on and I was like, boom, straight to the bottom.
Yeah, yeah.
I could barely get up and breathe. So I was like just drowning on both. I was drowning at the top, drowning at the bottom. I was like, this is terrible. But yeah, I've been going to the Florida Keys for the last couple of years, like with my wife, and I've been, getting into a lot of the fishing there and some snorkeling and stuff. But I'm like, I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos on diving and spear fishing and all that, and I have no idea how any of that stuff works. But I'm like, it looks like a whole nother world down there, man. And like, it looks cool. I want to go see it. I want to try it. So
yeah, oh yeah, dude, it's like, yeah, I a whole nother world is how I would describe it, Luke. Like, I mean, I think probably me and you share this, dude, is that like, it's not that there's not like you're never bored, right? There's too many adventures. It's not there's not enough. And
not enough time to go on the
adventures. There's not enough time to do all the different outdoor activities out there. But diving is a huge one for me. And I've done it off and on for quite a while, but I'm obsessed with it. But it's like it is a whole new world, dude. Like yesterday I dove right on like a big drop off, it's like 10 miles offshore. It's like 60-foot reef, and then it drops to like literally 1,000 feet. You know what I mean? And like sitting on that rim, it's like it feels like you're in outer space, dude. You know what I mean? It's like a totally different world. But no, man, we should do it. You'd pick it up good. And like the weight thing, man, the weight thing is like buoyancy is huge, particularly when you're learning. You know what I mean? Because it's scary. You know.
And that water was cold. That water was
yeah.
38 degrees or 40 degrees or something. So it was like, it wasn't the best conditions, but I would be willing to try it again.
Yeah. Look, it looked pretty cool though. Looked kind of like a cool deal, like getting
it was
oysters,
neat.
right?
It was cool.
For sure, man.
Rocks on the bottom.
Yeah. No, for sure. No, I'll circle back with you, dude. We'll do some diving or something. That'd be fun. But cool, Luke. Thanks, man. If you enjoyed this content, do me a huge favor. Subscribe on whatever platform you consume it on. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever works for you guys. Everything else is on my website, pursuitwithcliff.com. Go there and it's going to be very apparent to you that I work my ass off just to not have a real job. All the hunts I guide, all the seminars I put on, all the unique experiences I offer, and the membership site, all the details are there.